So this is planted in September 2022, so we're coming up on a year and a half, and we now know some of the foibles. So we had the most gorgeous massive aster that seeded into it, and it was beautiful, so we will have more of that. We have a fair bit of horsetail, but I have decided to leave it as green mulch. I'm not actually going to fight the horsetail too much because in a woodland setting, there's horsetail on the ground very commonly, right? So there's no way we'll ever get it out.
No,
I think it's like in the seed bank here, and it's come up through now that it's got the chance. There's some random little sedges and stuff that have stuck in, so we'll give it like maybe 2 weeds a year for a little while. But once the trees sort of take on, we're not really gonna do too much babysitting of it. This is a little garden at the front. It is a little bit weed threatened a little more, so I have to do a proper job of weeding that out this year. But this was also sponsored by the Northumberland Master Gardeners, and so we've got swamp milkweed and all kinds of like just whatever we thought would grow in a combination of sun and slightly damp feet. Narrow leaf vervain, which was gorgeous last year. I'm hoping the spotted bee balm comes back. I have a terrible time in my garden with it, but we're trying it just to see. So we're experimenting both with like wet and sun dry stuff just to see what goes here. And so in this one, hang on, and I'll pull up my plant list for this one. And I think our labels are now not as good as they used to be. So, oh wait, it's on the sign. Come around and have a look at the sign, because all the things that are in here are on the sign. It's from the Lower Trent mini forest kit. So this is what came with it. So we've got white oak, white pine, white birch, sugar maple, smooth rose, serviceberry, red oak, red maple, pagoda dogwood, choke cherry. Now what we weren't sure was whether we had the aronia or like choke berry. Like I'm not quite sure if it's like choke cherry or choke berry. Yeah, I'm not sure which of those two we actually had. So waiting for leaves. Butternut, fir oak, buffalo, you can read this yourself, but for your recording, American plum, bitternut hickory, American basswood, and American hazelnut. And they, I think, had more like 2/3 trees, 1/3 shrubs. Okay. But we did a little more shrubs in that one, partly because I thought if we had some loss, it'd be easier to replace them. But also they flower more with the trail walking by. So it's
a little more aesthetically pleasing.
That's right. And that's why we kind of tacked the garden on the front, because it would read more. Give something, Yeah. And so this was like kind of just to keep everyone entertained.
There's your little butternut.
Volunteer dogwood coming up all over the place. So we have the huge lilac festival here every year. So this was really neat last year to see. Like this is one of the main entry points, and people were like wavering over to here to have a read. So I was really pleased about that. That was good. So yeah, you can see the massive aster that tipped over. It was enormous. It was bigger than the trees. It was so funny. It was bright white. You could see it from the highway. Like, it was hilarious. So
where you plant, it's planned that it would stay there.
Yes.
And not be
never moved.
Not moved.
And they grow. The theory of it is that because it's a mix of understory and canopy, they, like the little guys are quite happy in the mix. And then the big ones, the theory is that because they all push up toward the light, but they do it kind of together. They don't get weedy and monster, but they do grow very quickly. And then they just kind of hang out at height. I don't know, I'm interested to see how it actually goes. But I think like our sort of parkland mode of planting is not always how they prefer to grow. Like
this is great to see.
This is very neat.
Of a couple of areas of what happened on my farm.
Well, if you're in your own land too, you don't necessarily need like this is to keep the dogs out and keep the bunnies out and that kind of thing. But you really wouldn't need a hard edge like this. Like this was really just so they wouldn't, like the town guys wouldn't come and like, you know, not understand what we were doing here. I didn't want them to think it was weeds. So it's sort of
this fencing's good though.
And it's not going to be there forever.
And in the wetland area though, it's actually helpful because it does get pretty wet.
Yeah.
Depending on time of year.
Yeah, exactly. It holds the mulch in and everything too on that
side. So you got 3 butternuts in here, huh?
Yep.
From all the research I was doing for the past couple of weeks, it was like basically rip out the topsoil, then put cardboard down and build up like a humus layer, kind of like humiculture would you would do. We didn't
scrape, partly because it was already mowed here. We just covered and let it go. Now I'm sure the horsetail's there Well, it would have been there anyway. I suppose it's a disturbance. We might have had more.
Yeah.
But I've been happy with the no-dig way. And when we went to plant, so this one, I think there was most of the summer had gone by before from site prep to planting, and by then the cardboard was gone. Like it was just invisible. You couldn't see any of it. And then the one we did over there, you could still have the cardboard, but we just cut it with a knife because it's so soft. So you just like chop out your hole, stick it in, you leave the cardboard in place.
And did you do any soil testing to find out what this was deficient in beforehand, or?
We just planted.
You just stuck them in the ground?
External conditions and stuck them in the ground, and it's remarkable. But they're all tough little.
Yeah, because the deeper you get into like the whole thing on Miyawaki Forests, the deeper it's like you got to test the soil, and you've got to scrape the first 20 inches off, and then replace it with homebrew.
Like it's like the creek's right there. This is all.
There's lots of silt, sand.
It's enough for little trees. And look around us. Like this is basically the same thing, except with some invasives mixed in. But if this stuff grows all right, this is going to be fine.
Yeah.
What we're doing is going to work out. So we kind of did a little we did really for sun and moisture level.
Yep.
This was the sunny kit from Lower Trent, but they mostly do those like the dryland meadow kit type ones from them. But that's why we did a different set down there.
How much was the kit?
So the kit, Lower Trent was selling them then for about $400.
Okay.
And you got 42 trees, something like that, 48-ish. And then when we did it from Natural Themes, I think it was about $350, $400 in that range for the same kind of number. Right?
Yeah,
You wanted to mix for the shrubs.
I'm surprised that there's no legumes in here.
Partly because we just bought the kit. That was why we didn't pick this plant.
Just because it seems like
you want some nitrogen fixers.
Well, you want some nitrogen fixers, and you want some plants that are going to continually lose biomass year after year to build up the soil content.
Yeah. So which ones would you get?
For legumes?
Yeah.
Like catalpa, honey locust is a legume and it's native.
Yep.
Redbud, which has actually been wiped out in Ontario in its native range.
Yeah.
But redbud's a really good legume because it's a shade tolerant lower story tree.
And it's cute. It's got like heart-shaped leaves and pink flowers.
Heart-shaped leaves, and it's got the cauliflower gene, so it flowers are
Eastern redbud.
Yeah, it flowers across its branches. It doesn't flower from
like
the
witch hazel,
tips.
but it's very pretty.